بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So far we studied two types of contradictions. One is the contradiction between the evidences. And we said that if one evidence is definitive, and the other one is apparent, then the one that is explicit and definitive takes precedence. And then we said that the evidence that is verbal takes precedence over the evidence which is nonverbal. And then also we mentioned the principle of conventional conciliation, قواعد الجمع العرفي, the principle of conventional conciliation, which has three parts. Part one, when we have an evidence, a hadith that is general, another hadith that is specific. So the specific takes precedence. Or if we have a hadith that are mutlaq, unrestricted, with another one, when it conflicts with another one which is restricted, we take the restricted one. And the third type of conflict, when we have something called hukuma, overruling. There is a ruling, another ruling that are more specific takes over and overrule the first one. So this is the hukuma. So these are when we have conflict and contradiction between evidences. And then we come to the second type of conflict, which is between the evidence and the procedural principles, al-usul al-amaliyya. And we say that definitely which one takes precedence? The evidence over the procedural principles, for the very obvious reason, because the evidence we derive ilm and qat'. It is a definitive, evidence, while the procedural principles are dhanni, speculative. And then we said we come to the third type of contradiction. And that is a contradiction between the procedural principles themselves. And we gave the example of a conflict between the presumption of continuity and the principle of exemption, asalatul bara'a, between istishab and bara'a. Which one takes precedence over the other? Continuity, definitely. That one takes precedence. Why? Because the principle of exemption is when we have initial doubt, we apply it. Okay? Or primary doubt or initial doubt, ash-shakkul badwi. In this case, we are not going to have initial doubt. We are going to have certainty, but then later on, we have doubt whether this certainty is continuing or coming to an end. Here, Sharia says you have to assume that it is continuing. Don't stop unless you have another type of what? Certainty. Okay? So do not break certainty with doubt. Break it with another type of certainty. So when we have contradiction now between procedural principles, two items within a procedural principles, the item of continuity, istishab, and the item of exemption, then istishab comes first. Now, let's go to the last part of this contradiction and the last lesson in the first book. The last lesson in the first book, and this is lesson number 7 for the second year. Now we come to the contradiction between evidences and procedural principles. We call it التعارض, contradiction between الدليل والأصل العملي, between evidences and procedural principles. Let's say we have now, how many types of evidences we have? Three, but in terms of, my question is, in terms of the value of the evidence, the worth, the influence, how many we have?
One.
No, we have two. We have an evidence that is definitive, okay, and certain, which is qat'i, no doubt about it. It's very powerful evidence, sure, and qat'i. The other is speculative evidence, the second one. That is also an evidence, but it is to a lesser degree. Okay? 1 second, doctor. Ali.